Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Lisa Rogers and I'm working in partnership with the Education Service Center Region 6 to present this module on building positive behavior in young children with special needs. The main focus of our time together will be on soaring to new heights with structure, routines, and visual tools. The goals of this module are to create predictable learning environments that promote positive behavior and student success, to develop clear expectations with routines and visual supports, and to build a variety of visual tools to teach and reinforce positive behaviors. While this module has been especially developed for educators working with young children, including those with special needs, all who are interested in this topic are welcome to join. The impact is broad. Let's get soaring. All children with special needs, after all, are children first. Let us celebrate their need for play as we also support their need for predictability, structure, and order. The agenda begins with a look at the power of predictability in visuals, followed by visual schedules and structure, routines and clear expectations, and closing with a look at the implementation and student success. How would you respond to the following scenario? On your way home from work, your friend from California calls and says they are in town and will be at your house in 30 minutes. And they are packed for a 2-week vacation at your house. And yes, you do like this friend. Even though you like this friend, has your anxiety risen just a bit or maybe even a lot? You might be thinking about all the things that you need to do to prepare for a guest, like cleaning the house. Or maybe you need to go to the grocery store now. Or what about projects that you have a deadline for? How will you manage that and be a good host? Would you feel a little bit better if, on your way home from work, your friend from California calls and says that she is planning to visit next month? And yes, you still like this friend. Better? Same friend, but what is the main difference? That is the power of predictability. Anticipating change helps to respond to that change. Combining the power of predictability with the power of visual supports is a recipe for student success. While your children are bright with many skills, there is a difference between words and visuals and how they are processed. Words are abstract and rather difficult for the brain to retain, whereas visuals are concrete and, as such, more easily remembered. After all, just think of all the visuals in our everyday lives. There are so many we almost take them for granted. What would driving be like without traffic signs? Probably more stressful and more hazardous. Without visuals, we feel lost, and with visuals, we are grounded with clear guides and clear expectations. What a simple yet powerful gift to give your children. One of the main differences between words and visuals is that those words are fleeting or transient. When you say line up, where do those words go? Out to the world that is filled with lots of competing information. The visual, in contrast, is static, remaining so that it will allow your brain to process and allow it to focus more effectively in spite of the competing information. Listening is a more complex skill when broken down into its smaller components. Have you ever heard a message and tuned in, but then you were distracted by a phone call? You might finish that call and say, now, what were you saying? For young children, that component of sustaining attention in order to follow through with the message is often quite challenging. So what might look like a child that isn't listening is really a child that is struggling to sustain their attention with so much, again, competing information around them. Friends talking, singing, clapping, jumping, and on and on. So let's support young children to sustain their attention better through the power of visual supports. Not only do visual supports help to improve the understanding of those messages, visual supports also provide structure and routine, encourage independence while building confidence and avoiding frustration and anxiety. This is true for young children and especially needed for young children with special needs. Now that we have established the power of predictability and visuals, let's continue to soar to new heights, to explore possibilities on how to provide both based on student needs. The first visual tool that we will examine is schedules, both class schedules and individual schedules, which build on the child's strengths for visual processing and also increases their understanding of our expectations. I now know what to expect. Schedules can make a positive difference in a child's behavior in class or at home. Perhaps the main reason that a schedule impacts behavior is that when a schedule is in place, children know what is coming next and what is expected of them. Knowing what is coming next lessens anxiety because there is no uncertainty about what they're going to be doing. Look for different examples of class and individual schedules in the following video.
Using visual supports in the classroom has many benefits for all children. Visuals can support children by helping them to predict what is happening next in their day, helping children to make connections with what they are told verbally, helping to remind children of the steps to directions such as washing their hands, and overall can help to reduce challenging behavior by helping children know what to expect in different situations. As adults, we use visual supports every day. Think about going into a new building for the first time. You look for visuals to tell you where to go. A sign that tells you which direction to go with a specific room name or number on it. Signs to tell you where to go for the bathroom, vending machines, stairs, or elevator. When you are driving, there are visuals that tell you what to expect along the road, such as a stop sign coming up or that there is a curve in the road ahead. Visuals are all around us in our daily lives, and they help us to prepare for what to expect. Visuals can be used the same way with young children in the classroom. Some children struggle with behavior when they do not know what to expect. They may become frustrated and act out during transitions. We can set up a visual schedule that tells children what will be happening during the day to help to reduce this anxiety. When we set the visual schedule up, we can be mindful of creating it so that when an activity is over, children can help to remove the item or turn the item over on the schedule to show that it is done. This can help children to visually see what is left to do for the day. It is not enough to just have the schedule posted. We want to refer to it throughout the day and talk about what has already happened and what will happen next. When you think about your life as an adult, you may create lists of things to do, or things that you need to get from the store. You use that list as a reminder of what you still need to do, and you cross things off when you have accomplished the task or picked up the item. Then you can easily see what you still have left to do. This is what the visual schedule can do for children, help them to see what they still need to do during the day. With some children, a daily schedule posted in the classroom is enough to help guide them when it is referred to throughout the day. Some children may benefit from using an individual schedule that breaks down different parts of the day. You may create an individual schedule for a child that has all of the activities in large group pictured. The child can then move the pictures to a folder that says done, move it to a list that says done, or even put a check mark next to the item that indicates that the activity is finished. Not all children will need this much support for an activity, but it is a strategy that can really benefit the children who do need the additional support. Visuals can also be used to help children throughout other times of the day. We know that giving children choices can help to reduce power struggles in the classroom, especially when we give two options to the child and we are okay with either choice. This gives the child some control over what is happening. For example, when we ask a child, "Do you want to wash your hands at the sink in here or at the bathroom sink?" Here, the child is washing their hands either way, but they get to choose where to do so. When we offer these choices, some children will be okay with making the choice after hearing it, and other children may need this paired with a visual. Adding a visual will help children make connections to the spoken word and provides a reference as the child is processing the words. Whereas pictures are great visuals to have to support children throughout the day, it is possible that pictures may be too abstract for some children. If this is the case, try a visual schedule with real objects to let children know the times of the day. You might use a book to represent story time, a shovel to represent outside time, and a favorite toy to represent choice time. There can be a basket set aside for these items to be placed in once the activity is over. When you give choices to a child, you may need to use real objects. If you are helping a child choose between the block area and the dramatic play area, you may use a wooden block and a doll for the child to see to help them make that choice. This helps to make a more concrete connection for the child. When we pair visuals with directions, we help children to understand what we are saying quicker than with words alone. Children need processing time to understand verbal directions. When children hear a sentence, they process each word separately as they try to make meaning of what is said. When we add visuals, children are easier able to make meaning of what is asked of them. One of the nice things to keep in mind with visuals is they do not disappear like words do. The children can easily look back at the visual as a reminder of what was said to them or asked of them. This helps children to become more independent with their routines as well as decrease confusion about what is expected and can help to reduce challenging behavior that comes with not understanding what to do.
There are 3 key considerations when creating your class schedule. First, that it be big and bold for your young children to be able to understand. Also, that it be at child level to enhance meaning and connectivity. And perhaps most importantly, that there is some way to indicate completion. You might turn over the schedule as items are completed, or perhaps there is an arrow or guide that moves along as activities are finished. However you choose to indicate completion, this can become a great student job to increase meaning, ownership, and consistent implementation. Often, it's the children who will remind the teacher when he or she has forgotten to turn the schedule over. Keep in mind that research has shown schedules and routines help children understand the expectations of the environment, and also, by doing so, reduce the frequency of behavior problems, such as tantrums and even acts of aggression. Understanding the significant impact of schedules on student behavior, let's take a moment for reflection. What does your own class schedule look like? Is your class schedule big and bold? Is your class schedule located at child level? Is there a way for the students to indicate completion? If you have all 3, way to go. If you have a missing component, this is a great time to make a tweak. Each small change can make a big difference. Speaking of change, what about when there are changes that happen in your daily routine? From assemblies to picture day to parties and beyond, each day could hold a change, which could be supported with a surprise card. When introducing the surprise card, remember to use it to inform the children of a fun or a positive surprise. For example, we are going to have extra recess time today. Surprise card. After all, not every surprise is a negative thing, but still brings a change, which is difficult for some children. By pairing the surprise card with a positive change, children are more likely to respond successfully to the surprise card when there's a more difficult change. And remember to sprinkle the children's interest when possible. This will further increase motivation and success with the strategy. We've reviewed the power of predictability, the power of visuals, and do not underestimate the power of student interests. By incorporating their interests, we not only increase motivation, but we also increase the ability for them to show us their competence. In addition to the class schedule, some children with special needs benefit from an individual schedule, which is an additional layer of environmental support that accommodates that need for predictability, and it also decreases anxiety about the unknown. Much like the class schedule, individual visual schedules take an abstract thought, such as time, and presents it in a more concrete and manageable form using words, pictures, objects, and any combination of those. When creating an individual schedule, there are several considerations to ensure that the schedule is tailored to each child's strengths, needs, and interests. One of the most important considerations is that of the format. What do they understand best, and even under stress? Is it clip art pictures, photographs, objects, words, any combination of these? If you're not sure, start where you think they might be successful and then adjust accordingly. Once you determine the right format for the schedule, then you will need to decide how the schedule will be displayed, presented to the student, and how much. Will the student operate best if the schedule is displayed on the wall in a left to right manner or top to bottom? Or possibly in a notebook or a clipboard for portability? Much like the class schedule, the individual schedule will need to have some way to indicate completion. How will the student move through his or her schedule? Will they look at it and check it off, turn the icon around, remove it and put it in a to-do or finish pocket? Or might you even do something a little more structured, such as taking the schedule icon with them and matching it to a corresponding label in the environment? The environment now becomes more and more clear when there are connecting visuals from the schedule to the environment. Think of it as a link between time, which is the schedule, and space, which is your environment or classroom labels. Let's take a moment to reflect. When might a student benefit from taking their schedule icon with them and match it to the corresponding picture or basket in the environment? Thinking about your own students, you might have thought that possibly when a student struggles with transitions, or when they lose focus after going to the schedule, when they have difficulty following through with directions, or when they've had minimal success with the schedule so far. In each one of these situations, we might consider adding this extra layer of connecting time and space. Yet another critical question is to decide whether or not a student will benefit from or maybe even need a transition marker to be successful. What is a transition marker? Well, it means one thing and one thing only. When you see this, go check your schedule. So without having to say a word, the teacher can present a transition marker, or it could be located on a first then board, end of a work system. But anytime they see that, they know I'm supposed to go back to this place and match it to my corresponding transition markers. So much is happening with this one tool. It decreases stress, increases independence, and it promotes smooth transitions throughout the day. Although every child is different, if you decide to use a transition marker, consider the preferred placement. Typically, the preferred placement of the transition pocket or basket is at the top left corner or beginning of the individual schedule. This creates a flow that is more clear from beginning of the schedule through to the end of the schedule. A visual schedule not only establishes a predictable environment where one feels safe, but it also provides motivation by helping them better understand the expectations and, most significantly, when preferred activities will occur throughout my day. Keep this in mind as you review the following scenario. The child is playing with their favorite thing during center time, and you give the 5-minute warning that it will be time to clean up and go to the carpet for story time next. The student screams no and starts running to a corner with that favorite toy. That child becomes more and more upset and refuses to transition to the carpet and even starts kicking and spitting. The antecedent or trigger is pretty clear. Transitioning from this highly preferred activity to something that is less preferred in that moment. How might you plan to prevent this from occurring in the future? Are you thinking that this is a perfect example of when a transition marker might be helpful? Absolutely. Additional layers of support to help make a transition from highly preferred to less preferred activities often include a transition marker and even a visual timer. Some children will need several layers of visual supports to show us their best selves. If the student is not following the individual schedule successfully, it might be tempting to abandon the strategy altogether. Rather, consider adjusting any aspect of the individual schedule to increase its effectiveness. Maybe the schedule icons need to be changed. Perhaps we need to connect the environment to the schedule, or maybe even the visuals need to be a little bit bigger, a little more clear, or maybe we need to add a transition marker. Another possibility is to implement the individual schedule with the ABA strategy called pairing. Pairing is all about social reinforcement and enthusiastic engagement. Therefore, building the individual schedule with highly preferred activities at first to teach and connect with the strategy is an effective and research-based approach to increasing student success with the schedule. Over time, less preferred activities will be added based on data and student performance. When implementing the pairing approach, this might feel like you are giving in to the student. Please think of it differently. You are actually building connections for future success. You are getting to know the child and understand their key motivators. You are sharing control so that there is trust. You are building momentum. And you are getting some control back by giving control. Another visual support to help transitions that are difficult or challenging is a first-then board. The effectiveness of this strategy lies in its ability to clearly and succinctly show a reward or an activity that may motivate a student to engage in a less preferred activity. This can be used with students who often ask for reinforcers or preferred activities throughout their day. A first-then board is based on the PREMAC principle, which states that a person's motivation to complete a less preferred activity is increased when it is followed by a more preferred activity. Using a first-then board will provide the child with the visual means of introducing new tasks, activities, or even events in a manner that the child understands and may be more motivated to complete. As you watch the next video, also look for how the first-then board might be introduced.
Hey everyone, Emily here, and I'm back again to talk about visual schedules, but this time I'm going to be talking about a certain type of visual schedules known as first-then boards. First-then boards are really great when you're trying to get your learner to do a unpreferred task or maybe a new task that they're not used to, so that might present a challenge to them. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to be using a paper-based first-then board, but there's also a lot of great virtual first-then boards that you can download via the App Store, and I highly recommend doing that because sometimes it's a lot easier to use a virtual-based one versus paper-based, but it really just comes down to preference. So it's not like one's better than the other. On my first-then board, and in my example, I'm going to be pretending like my student really does not like math and they really like music. So just keep that in mind. Aversion to math, music's very motivating. And because of that, I put math, you can see my math symbol here, in the first column, and I put my music symbol here, in my then column. When presenting a first-then board, especially to a learner that's never used one, you really want to start off with things that they actually like and that they're used to, which I know is kind of confusing because I'm talking about how they're great for unpreferred or new things. But if they're not used to it, you don't want to start off with all this new things. So if the first-then board is brand new to your child, make sure you're using things that they already like to do. So maybe you're going to do first iPad, then music, and then just do that a few times over a course of a few days to get them used to it, and then start to utilize this tool as a way to get them to do the things that they might not like or that is brand new. And by doing that, you want to keep it, especially if it's the first time you're doing it with a new task, and set parameters. So you're going to do math and you're going to do it maybe for a minute or two, or maybe you set your timer for 2 minutes, or maybe you use a song to indicate time. So you play, a 2-minute song, and then when the song is up or when the timer beeps, you say, good job, praise them for doing that, and then point to the then and say, now it's time for music, and maybe play, in the beginning, play a lot of music, and over time you can kind of decrease the amount of music you're playing as reinforcement, because they're getting used to the structure and what to expect from this. So in the beginning, using a lot of reinforcement, and then thinning it out over time because you want it to be as natural as possible. So that is really the basics of a first send board, and be on the lookout for some videos and links that have to do with virtual first send boards. And also, this doesn't have to be done with the symbols here. You can also use photographs, you can use objects. So for example, you can say, first you need to cut with scissors, and then you can brush your hair. So you can also do it that way by showing them objects. There's a lot of different ways you can write it out, type it up. The materials you use for the first send board really depend on what is best suited based on the unique needs of your student. See my earlier video on how to implement a visual schedule if you want a little more details about why it is to do it that way. But I wish you all the best of luck in implementing your first send boards. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video today.
As we've just learned, when introducing a first send board, start with a neutral item activity that is followed by a highly preferred item or activity. Remember, when introducing a first send board, it's important to set up the child for success. It's okay to use prompts to support them, assist them, to ensure success. In this last section, we reviewed class schedules, surprise cards, individual schedules of all kinds, transition markers, timers, and first send boards. Let's keep adding to our visual toolbox in the following section, routines and visuals. Let's continue to build on that power of predictability, the power of visuals, and the power of interests. This will all help to clarify expectations throughout their day and at any given moment. As soon as children enter the classroom, a morning routine PowerPoint can be scrolling on the smart board or in a written checklist format to clarify the steps of getting ready for the day. This can help set the stage for a positive beginning to a positive day. First, we walk in quietly. Then, if you have one, put your lunchbox in the basket. And here we have our children modeling for us how to get out your folders. Then, put your folders in the green tub. Time now to put your backpack away. And now you can make your lunch choice. Time to relax and read your book. And our Paw Patrol friends remind us to get ready for a great day. Of course, your routine will be different than the one you just viewed. But think of the steps that you want your children to follow as they begin the day, and make your morning routine PowerPoint match those steps. Another visual support to clarify expectations is the Positive Behavior Flipbook. This might look like a simple tool, and it is. Simple yet powerful. Remember that words are fleeting or transient, and visuals are static or constant. Barbara Frew, a veteran teacher of over 30 years, can attest to the power of the Positive Behavior Flipbook. She shares that this is one of the best tools she's ever used in the classroom. It is effective and fun, the children love it, and so does she. Each classroom has a set of classroom rules or expectations. Be sure to review the rules on a regularly planned basis and not just at the beginning of the school year. In doing so, you can provide positive feedback that is specific to the expectations, and also provide corrective feedback with opportunities to practice the desired behaviors. This is how the class rules come alive off the wall and have meaning for young children. Smaller, personal versions of the classroom rules are called keychain rules. These are given to a student to give a more concrete tool that can be easily referenced when a rule reminder needs to be given. For example, Orion and Savannah are bothering each other at large group time with some excessive touching. Sound familiar? But rather than say, "Put your hands down, you two," I can now say, "Orion, go get the keychain rules for me, please," which first of all distracts him from the current situation. And once Orion gets the keychain rules in hand, I can now say, "Flip to number 2. What does it say?" Hands to self. That's right. Show me. Great. Hold on to that if you want for a quick reminder. And the keychain rule is used as an intervention to teach the desired or replacement behavior. And while this set has pictures of Superman, each set of keychain rules can be tailored for different student interests. For example, in this set of keychain rules, we see that Peppa Pig is leading the way toward more positive behaviors. When possible, also include the student in the creation of their own keychain rules for even greater impact. Another visual tool to clarify expectations is a levels of talking chart. Once again, we see a theme incorporated. This time it's Star Wars, and it's used to teach self-regulation as it relates to volume control. As with all the visual tools and supports, they do not create magic by themselves. They need you, the teacher, to teach and practice when calm, implement or refer to consistently, and provide positive reinforcement when students are successful. This is how, together, we soar to new heights. So many visuals to implement and work toward building momentum for student success. Let's look at a few real-life examples for some inspiration. This simple yet powerful positive behavior flipbook helps this young man wait for his food at a restaurant, making his family outing a much more pleasurable experience for all than it had been before. Working collaboratively, school and home schedules may share common types of visuals for greater consistency and impact. With a schedule at home, this same young man now understands that there is no school on weekends, with a simple picture of school with a universal sign for no over it. His parents no longer have to work through a very rough moment on Saturday and Sunday mornings that often ended in a trip to the school to show that it is truly closed. As you watch this next video, keep in mind that this is a training event. You will see many educators in the background. They are creating strategies and collecting data to inform the revision process, but keep your eye focused on Danny. His teacher shared with us that he has many oppositional defiant behaviors. As you watch the video, think of words that you would use to describe Danny.
You want the chair?
How would you describe Danny? Did you say focused, on task, engaged, and yes, even independent? As you watch this young man navigate through the sea of adults, you see the power of the visual supports to help not only give him clarity, but also serve as a guide. Time again for reflection. What would you say to someone that tells you this? Why would I use visuals if the student is verbal and has many cognitive strengths? He or she understands me. They know what I'm telling them. They just don't want to do it. Thinking of everything that we have reviewed in this module, how would you respond? With everything you know, you probably would have a lot to say. But calmly, you would share that visuals speak to the brain in a way that complements and supports verbal information. Visuals clarify expectations of the world for most people. Think of how signs and pictures tell you where to go at the airport or restaurant or grocery store. When in stress, the brain needs visual supports to process and respond more effectively. You might also add that visual schedules are an environmental support that accommodates the need for predictability and decreases anxiety about the unknown. Visual strategies promote independence versus dependence on people. We all have a calendar, but how many of us have a personal assistant? If you said any of these or all of these, you are correct. So you are now charged with the opportunity to share your knowledge with others working with young children, and especially young children with special needs. As we come to the close of our module, you have the power of predictability, the power of visuals, the power of interests, all to add to the power of play. Together, these create the launch pad for soaring to new heights. Thank you for joining us, and thank you so much for making dreams come true for all your children. For additional support, please contact your district special education department or Pam Bumpus, the Early Childhood for Special Education Specialist at the Education Service Center Region 6. It has been my pleasure to spend this time with you. It's time now to soar.